To introduce myself, my name is Chantal Morgan. I am the Senior Digital Marketing Manager at IMechE. So I oversee different areas of the digital marketing department. So that's, email, looking after video, graphic design, branding, the website as well. So I'm joined here today by my colleague Margaret Ann, who's going to introduce herself as well.
Hello, good afternoon, and thanks very much for joining this webinar with us. We're really pleased that you can be here today. My name is Margaret Ann Orgill, and I'm Corporate Communications Manager at IMechE. I work very closely with Chantal. I run a team. We deal with external communications and media relations. We also run our social media channels, which we'll talk about later today. So, welcome, and we look forward to, any questions, please do put them in the chat, and, feel free to contribute as well. Thank you.
Yeah, and so we have prepared a presentation, so don't worry, you won't be staring at our faces all day. So I'm just going to share my screen now so you can see the presentation. And as I said, this session is being recorded. And if you do have any questions along the way, do feel free to put them in the chat, and we will go through them later on at the end. Okay, so today's session is about the IMechE brand guidelines. And as I said, we've introduced myself. It's just myself and Margaret Ann who are going to talk through the updated brand guidelines. So in terms of the agenda for the presentation, we're going to go through the brand guidelines and what's changed. We're going to have a look at some of the brand templates that we have as well. We'll talk about the social media channels, give you some useful resources and information, and then we'll have a Q&A session at the end. These slides and this webinar will be shared with you afterwards. So we do have some links here as to how you can contact us. So we've got a social media email address. We've got one for branding if you need some support, and also IT, just in case you have any issues along the way. But I know that, the people who are on this call are volunteers who are, you're doing your own sorts of branding, you're creating your own marketing materials, and you want to know how to become better at it or to get some tips. So that this hopefully should be able to help you with some of those stuff that you're working on. Okay, so IMechE brand guidelines. We've had the brand guidelines for many years now, and it's kind of the backbone of everything that we do. We do appreciate that the original brand guidelines was very cumbersome. It was very long-winded. It was hard and difficult to follow. So we made some amendments. So some of those amendments are including hyperlinks within the guidelines. So you're not having to scroll through 100 pages. You can click to different areas. We've simplified it and reduced the number of pages. We've added the IMechE vision and values, which have recently changed since we've had a new CEO. So when Alice joined us last year, we've got the D&I guidance, so looking at diversity and inclusion, and we've added some commercial stuff in there as well for the commercial businesses like Sonispection and Arguan. What's new in this particular version of the brand guidelines is we've now got a tone of voice chart, which I'm going to show you some of these features in a second as well. We've got a social media section, an audio visual section for those of you who might be doing some videos for social media, and we've got stuff on the sub-brands as well as our secondary colour palette. So I'm just going to show you the brand guidelines, and I'm just going to highlight a few things on there, so bear with me 1 second. Okay, so this is what the new brand guidelines looks like. It's a new one because it says down here July 2022. And when we go to the contents page, so some of the things I mentioned before is about the hyperlinks. So all of these sections are clickable. So instead of scrolling through everything, if you just want to know more about the brand voice and the tone of voice, you just click on that section and automatically it takes you there. So with the brand voice chart, we've added in, tone of voice. So how do we want to be seen in the public? You know, we use different sorts of tone of voice depending on which channels we're using, you know, but as an institution, we want to be seen as the go-to place for, you know, mechanical engineering updates, or the go-to place if government wants to find out more information. So some of the characteristics that we have here is we want to come across as passionate about engineering. We want to be authoritative when we speak in a type of words that we use. We want to be informative to people. We want to be optimistic about the future and how we can improve the world through engineering. And we also want to be determined. So with all of those characteristics, we've just provided, you know, do's and don'ts as to how you can adapt that into, you know, the content that you might use in your banners, in your marketing brochures, in your social media. And if you follow those, it should all sound like one vision, one voice. Because we are all part of an IMechE family. So this would help you to stay on brand with what we're doing. Another section of the new brand guidelines. And again, it's just a brief, because we are going to go into some of this in more detail, is we've got a social media section that's been added. So this really looks at our key channels. So we've got here Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn and YouTube. Margaret Ann's going to talk more about those later, but we do have guidelines in here to help you when you're, you know, designing some of those social media banners and ads. Within the guidelines, we have the new section that's been added as well is for audio visual. So if you are creating videos or working with external agencies, we've given you some guidelines there as to how to create those videos and what sorts of formats you should use. And throughout the whole brand guidelines, we do have visual examples. So it kind of, you know, helps you to say, okay, this is what you're trying to achieve when you are doing a social media post, or, you know, here are some examples of videos that we've created, and how can you make it more in line with what we're up to. So those are just some of the key things or new additions that we have within the brand guidelines. So I'm now going to hand you over to Margaret Ann, who's going to talk a bit more about our colour palette.
Thanks, Chantal. As part of the revision of our guidelines, we did have a look at this at our colour palette to see if it was up to date and modern. And those of you who are familiar with the colour we use will notice in our primary palette, the one on the left, which is the one we use for all the headlines and text. We've simplified it. Thank you, Chantal. And we used to have a colour there that you might be well familiar with, a sort of steel grey, steel blue it was called, and we've retired that colour because it just looked a bit dated. So we now have three primary colours, and you'll be familiar with the two reds that we use for headlines, and the warm grey, which we use for text. And then at the same time as we did that, we had a look at our other colours we had to see which ones people use, which ones people didn't use, which ones could be updated. And this is called the secondary palette. And as you can see on the right, some of the colours had minor adjustments to the palette that we had previously. And we've got two new in the third column along, you can see replacement, a rusty colour and then an orange colour. These were new colours that we brought in because the previous colours we found people weren't using, they didn't find very attractive. And then we've expanded the palette to include purple. So there's 4 new colours that you're able to use. That's the last column. And so we hope you'll find these are a really good addition, and we think that they give people ample opportunity to use them, design creative designs. Oh, great. Well, thanks, Jack. Nice comment. He loves the new palette. That's excellent. That's what we want to hear. You know, it's modern, it's fresh looking, and it's updated. And I have to say, a lot of work has gone into the colours that we've chosen to make sure that they're compatible, that we will talk about contrast in a minute, that they meet inclusion guidelines, that the contrasts work. So please do use them. You know, we're very pleased with them, and hopefully you'll notice them in the documents and all our communications. And we brought them in probably mid-year. So from mid-year, we've been using the new palette. And contrast checker, that's another. This also links with the palette. One really important aspect for us is inclusion, and for those, and the key thing about inclusion, making our communications as visible, as understand by as broad audience as possible, is to make sure that the contrast between Oh, thanks. We'll answer the questions and then the contrast between the headline and the background colors are really important. And all our color palette has been designed to make sure that the contrast is sufficient so people with visual impairment can read them really clearly. And you can see here as an example of the three using the different blues, you can see how the contrast is sufficient, and that's been carefully organized. And we also know that when you do text, that you can check the contrast. There's a thing called the Web AIM contrast checker that you can check the contrast between your text and the background to make sure that there is sufficient contrast. So if you have any questions, do ask us. And if you use the colors that we've provided, the contrast will be sufficient and meet the right standard. Thank you.
Thanks, Margaret Ann. And I guess, going back to what we said about the contrast and why we do this. So one of the big pushes that we've been doing here at IMechE is looking at our diversity and inclusion. So we have recently implemented a D&I strategy, and we want to make sure that everything we do is compliant with the D&I strategy. And it's important for our brand and our visual identity. And so we have created an inclusive communication guidelines document, which will be shared with you after this meeting. And there is an upcoming webinar that's taking place in November as well for an hour, where you can hear more about, why is D&I important to us and why should it matter? And everything we do in our designs, in our marketing materials, in our social media that we put out, we want to ensure that there's no barriers preventing anyone from accessing our communications. Everybody should be able to perceive, understand, and interact with our designs. And it's designed to reach as broad as an audience and as diverse an audience as possible. We want to share things in a way that everybody can understand. And I know this is, talking about materials, but this is also being translated across our other channels. So on the website, we now have an accessibility widget. So when you go to the website, when you click on the little icon, it helps you to increase the size of the text. You can change the contrast. It has an audio section as well. So all those things should help it and make it easier for people to browse and read the website. So this is why we're trying to not just have it on the website, but also expand it out to all the other channels and everything else that we're doing. Over to you, Margaret Ann, with the templates.
Yes, and part of the rebranding or the updating of our branding is we looked at our templates because they were really, really very dated, using the old colors, but also didn't have a sort of fresh image, and they weren't easy to use. So we have created a whole series of new templates. The ones that there's a PowerPoint template. It's called external PowerPoint template because it uses Verdana, which is the free font that everyone on this call will have access to. It's on all computers, whereas our internal font template uses a paid for font that's licensed to us. We've also created Word, we've created posters, with text. We've also created an A5 flyer, and we've created a IMechE report. External again refers to the fact that it's with the Verdana font. And for example, on the PowerPoint template, they all at the top you'll see that there's the Microsoft standardized colors, which we couldn't get rid of, but as you're not allowed to remove them, but there's our custom colors are there, so all the colors are embedded within the template for you to use, and there's also quite clear, and there's notes and instructions on it. Yeah. Oh, actually, yes. And this is the template on this presentation. Is the template that we are using. Thanks, Chantal. You can see at the top this presentation, and if you run through, you can see. If you go on to slide 2, you'll see the fonts and the fact it's in Verdana. Slide 3 then talks about the color palette we have. Margins. It talks about that. It gives you, there's some really useful, there's the introduction, another example of one that obviously we've used to today's format, really good, useful of how you can use imagery really clearly. There's also possibility of including video content as well in it. So you can see it's a lengthy template because it's also got tables and everything in it. Graphics you can use. Basically, We've simplified it from the old template, but we've included everything we think people might need to use. And these are all available. I think there's a question from Jack asking whether they're available, and Chantal will come on to that because they are available to members now. We're really keen that people use them.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And throughout everything that we do have branded examples. So going back to the brand guidelines, we've got examples in there of how things should look. And we've got this as well, which shows you some of the materials we've produced. And, you kind of get a look and feel as to, how some of the things are. So if you look at headings, we've got the red on the top line or the top row, and then you've got the burgundy on the bottom row. And this is kind of consistent throughout all of our materials. So these just kind of help you to get a bit of a flavour as to, what we're trying to achieve.
On our social media channels, we just thought we'd have a quick overview here. We have 5 social media channels, and we're very active on social media. It's growing fast for us. One of our main channels is LinkedIn. I don't know if it clicks through, whether these have interactive links on the.
They do, yeah.
Yeah, LinkedIn, for example. I just wanted to highlight LinkedIn because it's one of our fastest growing channel. It's got nearly 95,000 followers. So we're up 10%. Up from about 86,000 last year, so we're doing really well. And I would urge you, if you want to follow IMechE, this is one of our key channels. We put all our updates, all our news here about the institution comes here, and it's interesting. That's a news story. It's interesting to see who follows it. It's one of our most international channels. It covers all age ranges, and it is particularly strong internationally. And we get a lot of engagement. You'll see comments, likes, shares. So do follow us on LinkedIn to keep up with us and also to spread the word about engineering. Twitter, we've got nearly 50,000 followers. No, 40, sorry, just over 40,000 followers on Twitter. And Instagram is a fairly new channel we've launched. We've got nearly 800 followers on that. And YouTube is another fast growing channels, and that's where all our video content is. So there's a lot of really good content from events we run, for example, the student challenges. We do videos after each of them. And also, I was looking today, there's one that's had loads of views. It's like a top tips for your professional registration interview. So we have those. We also have all the webinars from the different divisions and groups. So there's technical webinars as well. And while I'm here, actually, something else I'd like to mention, it's not on our slide, is we have a podcast. I don't know if you've all heard, we've got a podcast, Impulse to Innovation, which we launched a couple of years ago, and that's also really worth looking. It's on the homepage of our website, and if you click there, you can go through and see it and follow it and download the episodes. That's growing fast as well. So thank you. And do follow us on social media. It's a great way to keep up with us, and also comment and like stuff, share posts, and we would be fantastic.
Yes, I think when we send the slides afterwards, we can add the podcast link. And I know we said that you guys can like and share things, but I know that some of you may be looking after regions or committees. So if there are things like there's an annual dinner happening in a region, do let us know about it, because we are keen to, I guess, work in partnership and make sure that, yes, you guys are, I guess, liking and sharing stuff from the main IMechE channel, but how can we support you in your own community or in your own regional channels as well? So it should definitely work as a two-way street.
Yes, thank you. Exactly. Yeah, thank you, Chantal. It's definitely true. And there's the contact email address is below, media@imeche.org. So drop us a line and we'll see if we can help.
Yeah. Okay, so over to resources and useful information then. So I know sometimes, it's a lot of stuff to be doing. You're a volunteer, you might have your own full-time job that you're doing as well as volunteering for IMechE. So sometimes you are working with external designers or external agencies. So these could be graphic designers or video agencies. So I guess a useful tip that if you are working with external designers is to send them the brand guidelines, which we're obviously going to share with you too, just so that they can follow the guidelines when they're creating the materials. And when they are producing things for you, to request the final artwork files. So what that means is if you're doing an event and you've asked an external designer to create an event banner, then they would send you over the final file, but also ask for the artwork files. And the reason why that's important is if next year you decide to use a different designer, if you've got the original files, it makes it easier for the new person to pick up the work. Otherwise, you're going to be spending, more money having to recreate something from scratch. So do always ask for the original files when you're working with external designers. And sometimes when you're doing things, whether it's creating a marketing material or doing some sort of social media, people always ask about images. So here we've provided a list of places where you can get royalty-free images, and also the This Is Engineering website as well. They've got some really good engineering images that you can use too. We do have images here at IMechE, and if you do need images that you're unable to find that are very specific and bespoke, do contact someone from IMechE, whether it's I know some people might know the names of Mary Newton or Catherine Hayes, but it contacts the main admin person of your committee or your region, who will be able to help you source some images from the IMechE media library. So we can help in that aspect, and we do have images of like Alice, our CEO, of Phil Peel, our president. So we do have images of the directors and past presidents if you need those. So do feel free to get in contact and we can see how we can help. As we mentioned earlier as well, so fonts, when you're working on things, is to use Vandana. So this is available on all PCs and it's free to use. And with the PowerPoint templates and the Word templates, these fonts are already preset in the templates. But we do have a previous webinar that was done last year, and it goes into a lot more details about the PowerPoint, like how to use the PowerPoint template or how to use the Word template, just for those who are not familiar with PowerPoint and Word. So you can watch that back at a later stage. And we've put our contact details if you do need help with social media, if you've got any queries, or if there's any branding queries, and in general, if you've got any IT issues that you're struggling with, I don't know, website or setting up anything, then we've provided the IT help desk as well. So that's kind of it with us talking about the brand. I'm just going to unshare my screen just so we can take any questions. Oops, bear with me 1 second.
I think I did see a question. There's definitely one question in the chat.
Okay, so we're just going to go through some of the questions that are inside of the chat. If anybody does have a question, then yeah, now's the perfect time to put them in there. Just bear with us a minute. Okay, so where do you find the red, green, blue values? That's from Christopher. So those are in the brand guidelines. As I said, we're going to share those guidelines with you afterwards, but it's going to have the values in there. And that's how you can use them to create some of the stuff that you're working on. That's a good question. Jack asked, are these all available to us now? So yes, they are all available, and we will share them after the presentation. So we're going to share with you the slides, the inclusive communications document, the templates that we mentioned, and the brand guidelines. So that will all be available for you to use straight away. Do we have a photo library? So yeah, we do have a photo library. At the minute, it's the way how it's been set up is it's only accessible by IMechE staff. But if you have a member email address, then you should be able to access it too. So for example, obviously my name is Chantal. So if the email address was, I don't know, chantal.morgan@imeche.member.org, then you'll be able to access the photo library. But if you don't have an IMechE email address, then you wouldn't be able to get access to it. And it's just the way how IT have set it up for us.
And I would also add, just adding to Chantal, that in that media library, there are access to the brand guidelines, and the templates are also in the media library, but you need to log in through your IMechE member email address. And all the photos there are professional photos, which we've got copyright to, which is the other key thing about it.
And then I think the final question here is from Jack, and it's just saying that Jack's committee has done a lot of work over the years on social media. So just to have someone from the social media team to review the pages and make sure that they're on brand, and
That's
to
fine.
give them any pointers. So that's fine. I think, Jack, if you can just send us some links to those pages, then obviously the team can kind of look at it and be able to maybe schedule a meeting with you in, like, a
Yeah.
few weeks' time.
Which committee is Jack for event posters? Jack, which committee are you from? Oh, Devon Cornwall. Oh yeah, no, I've seen you active on social media. Is there a template for event posters? Yes, there is. It's there's a poster, isn't there? I turn back to the templates. Yeah, again you can access it through the media library.
Yeah, I think we'll share all the files anyway, just for those who can't access the library, just so that it is inclusive to all. But yes, you'll be able to have all those, and I'm just making a note of some of the things that you guys are asking for. But do keep the questions coming. So we have a question here about at imechenearyou.org. So no, it needs to be a member email address. So it needs to be at imeche.member.org. We'll be able to get you access. But if you're unable to, and this was coming from a look. So a look, if you're unable to get access into that, do contact somebody within HQ. You can contact, we put the details on the presentation slides. If there's a particular photo that you need, we can get it for you and send it across to you. So that's not a problem. Any other questions?
Yeah, I can see someone's typing in now. So
Yeah, no, that's fine. Who should we contact to request to share an IMechE event on their LinkedIn page? So are you looking to share a committee event onto the main IMechE page? And
if that's the case, drop us an email at media@imeche.org.
Yes. So that's like a shared inbox, so we'll be able to pick it up and have a look at the event, and we can share it and stuff like that. So Jack's mentioned about tagging the main IMechE page. So yeah, that's okay. This whole thing is meant to be like working both ways. So we want to give you as much exposure as possible with some of the stuff that you're doing. So whether it's getting more people to come to your event, more people to watch your online webinar. So do feel free to, tag IMechE in those posts, or, request for extra support. That's fine.
Some more questions coming in.
No, keep them coming. We like the questions.
Yeah, no, it's good to have a chat, and also for us to realize what issues yes, that's fine. Yeah, it's interesting for us to know what issues you're raising, what your concerns or interests are.
So Jack's asked a question about sharing an event with another institution. So we've done events before that have been co-branded. So as long as you can try, we can appreciate that it's not going to be 100% on brand, but as long as you can find a way to make it co-branded, so whether that's having the IMechE logo there, and that sort of thing, then there are ways around it. It's nothing, the brand guidelines are not meant to be, rigid or set in stone. We can be flexible depending on what's happening. So Mohammed, you've raised a good question in relation to IMechE email address. I think that's one for IT. I know that there was a load of IMechE email addresses, but they would be the best ones to be able to help you with that one. So that was the digital help desk at imeche.org. And maybe actually whilst we're here, I can post those contact details in the chat, just so you're not waiting for the presentation to be sent, but at least that will help you in the meantime. Oops, coming up a bit big. Are there any more questions from?
I've seen Jack. Something's come from Jack. I thought I saw Jack writing.
Okay.
I think there could be something about to pop up from him.
No worries. Okay, well, in the meantime, I have provided the email addresses for some of those things. So Mohammed, your question will go to IT support. And I know a few people have asked about social media along the way. So you've got the social media one there.
Yeah. So I'll look after that contact, that email box. So we'll answer any questions you've got.
Yeah. Okay, Margaret Ann, is there anything else that you think would be of benefit to everyone on the call?
No, I think that I think we've covered absolutely everything. If there's any questions you've got, please do ask. Be useful to know if you found this session, any feedback's useful, whether you found it, interesting, valuable. I know the conference was organised at, fairly short notice, so it might be something we repeat in future. And we're keen to spread the word about our brand, the guidelines, the templates. So any suggestions for doing that would be great as well.
Yeah, and these brand guidelines are meant to be helpful. So as you're working through your own individual stuff, if you find that you're struggling or actually something can be done better, we're always open to suggestions. Because as you just saw, the brand guidelines was just updated. So there are going to be future updates in years to come. So if there is something that you think would be beneficial to more volunteers, then do let us know and we can begin to work on it or see what we can do to help you guys out. We really do appreciate your time, not just for coming to the webinar today, but for all the time that you've committed to IMechE. And we do want to help you in the best way possible and not make life harder for you. So yeah, do feel free to contact us if there are any issues or any questions along the way.
And one thing I'm looking to organise for next year, thank you, Chantal, is maybe get all the people who do the comms officers and comms volunteers in our regions, that maybe we could have a get together or hybrid get together next year at some point, and that we can run over some of these things, and we can see how we can support you, and maybe improve the contacts we have with the comms officers in the regions for the different committees. So that's something we're looking to do next year.
Okay.
But yeah, the guidelines are for professional. I have to say one thing about the guidelines: they are for professional designers. So they might look a bit daunting, but they're the information the designers need to to create the documents that to the standards we need. So you can see Jack's comment about the guidelines. Well, good luck for reading them. Well done.
Well, that's why I've got the hyperlinks now, so that instead of you having to scroll through 100 pages to find what you're looking for, if you're interested in just social media, you can go to the new social media section and you can see some of the designs that we've done. You can see the sizing to use. So hopefully it should make life a bit easier in that aspect. And obviously we've got video stuff in there too.
Yeah, please get in touch with us. It's great. It's great to have more contact with members. So thank you for joining us. If you've got no more questions, thank you very much for joining the session today.
Yeah, and I know we didn't use up the full hour, but no, at least you get a little bit of time back, a little bit of a lunchtime, and hopefully hear from some of you guys soon. So thank you for joining, and we'll speak to you soon.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.